Hello, I'd like to welcome you to a special Ideas with Diana. This special edition is a reflection of the movie Less Than Zero. When the movie came out in 1987, I was in my mid 20s. Recently graduated from the pre med program at UW Parkside, and also with a applied computer science degree, which included advanced EECS, artificial intelligence, real-time systems, computer education, as well as an internship in emergency room on the night shift, the graveyard shift. When the movie came out, I didn't get a chance to see it because 1987-88 was after graduation was sort of a little bit of a weird period for me. So there's certain things that basically I sort of dropped that I used to do. I go to movies and other stuff. But the thing I remember though is I remember when I talked to friends who saw the movie Less Than Zero, many of them said they walked out of the movie when it came to a certain scene near the movie where a certain act was done regarding sort of a gay act like that, though, by with someone set up because of a due to abuse and that, and they didn't see the whole end of the movie. So for some reason tonight I decided to watch it. I found it on a streaming website. I was surprised I didn't see it on Amazon, Netflix, Paramount, Peacock, and basically what my reflections on the movie is that it's a very moving movie. It's very I find it very real because even in 1987 when I was 25 and I did my internship in the emergency room in pre med, there was a perception that Kenosha was like a small town community, didn't have big city problems, and what happens for those of us who worked the graveyard shift in the emergency room, Kenosha had big city problems. It had Chicago problems. Although some people in Illinois will so refer to some Wisconsinites as having Wisconsin fun, Wisconsin fun disappeared from Wisconsin a long time ago, especially during that time in the late '80s, like that though, with many people coming in, just like basically in the movie, lacked up from PCP, drug use, other stuff, and in the movie though, the reason why I thought it was interesting for me though, because at that time, um, the pre med culture um, at Parkside was very fast. There's a driven thing to succeed because the advisor back then, she had a perfect record, and the impression was she didn't want anyone to blemish her perfect record. I was the one who was quote accused of blemishing a perfect record because I didn't go directly to medical school. I went to medical research, and also I didn't go to the route that she wanted me to go into, which was signing up for the Navy as an officer. Part of the reason why I couldn't sign up for the Navy as an officer involved some simple things. First, I was transgendered. I'm closeted. I have Klinefelter's 1, which means if I signed up in the Navy, I would never survive in the barracks because I probably would be beaten up or harassed or even thrown out due to a Section 8 or something else because at that time they didn't have don't ask, don't tell. Um, so, so my choice was to go through medical research. I did my medical training a different way, but not her way. And so she was mad that she, but to many people and the friends of mine in the program, there's so much pressure and there's so much desperation to get out of Kenosha after the auto factories closed, um, that they were really desperate. I mean, some of them used to take speed for tests, and there's other types of things, and they said, well, we everyone else does it to get an A. I was again, I was the sober person who didn't do that, and a few of us were the sober people. But what happens? We would get late night phone calls of people calling us, friends calling us for help because, like in Less Than Zero, they were wasted. Fortunately, sometimes it's mostly they're drunk, but that's why even today, like I tell friends, please don't call me after 10 o'clock unless it's a real emergency. And with some of those friends that called late hours, like at 2 in the morning, 10 o'clock, I eventually had to break up the friendship because um, it was too much. I tried my best, but like in the movie, I and other soul friends, we did our best to help. We tried to be there as the sober friends, and it's very hard. And even also pulling away from the groups that were trying to pull them in. Um, when I look at the movie Less Than Zero now, I'm much older than I was back then. Back then, I was in my mid 20s. Right now, I'm in my early 60s. And even when I look at today and I think back about that time. Boy, um, people really don't realize how much pressure there was, even for people who didn't live in LA. Like, for example, people in pre professional programs in Wisconsin and even in so called state universities, as Parkside used to be known as, um, basically. And what's strange about that at that time, Parkside actually had bands that performed on Friday and Saturday nights. We had a rec center, we had video games, had a bowling alley, we had two different cafeterias. We also had a bar where the bands performed. Nowadays, Parkside is more considered like a dry college, and all the food facilities are corporate. But basically, those who did stuff in the rec center, like play video games like Tron, Wizard of War, went bowling. Those were like the sober kids. Those were like me and others like that though and stuff. But the others who wanted to get more than what Illinois people used to call then Wisconsin fun, those are the ones that got in, like in the case of Robert Downey's character, overextended into other things. And as the sober friends, we remember before they got pulled in, and we tried to help them as much as we can. And some we did help, others we didn't. But eventually, in my case, I had certain friends that I couldn't help, and I had to break off the friendship for my own good. And my parents used to say, "Well, it's too bad, you always have to go out alone." And but my parents were glad in some ways I didn't, that I did go out alone, because basically, because they didn't want me getting involved in that stuff and getting pulled in. So, in some ways, I sort of had to go to a more sheltered existence like that, though. But when I look back at the movie, I think about that time, and basically in pre med, how much pressure was put on people to get an A average, and even with the one advice of how much she wanted to keep her perfect record. Nowadays at Parkside, at different they have percentages, like X percentage of people who graduate go into this field 6 months or later into graduate school, X percent of people, and even the pre med program, they it's no longer 100%. It's down to something a little bit below 90. So it's truthful that basically not everyone in pre med is going to go directly to medical school. But that time, that was what the selling point was. If you went through this advisor, you would go to medical school, and if you went through this anatomy professor, you go through medical school. And it was sort of like a less than zero type environment, because for people who had trouble studying or couldn't get A's naturally, they would some would take artificial means. And for those of us who were the sober kids, non-drug kids, basically it was hard on us, because many, like in the movie, many of us knew people from junior high school, even from grade school, because Kenosha at that time was a very close knit community. Everyone knew everyone else, and um, so what I'd say with the movie lessons, I'm glad that they were able to produce it. I'm glad the author was able to write the novel on this, because it is very important, that I think the problem today is even more exacerbated. Um, and in closing, when I first saw the introduction to the movie, as it's for a moment I thought it was going to be like a modern retelling of The Graduate, but it is some way a retelling of The Graduate, but in a level that they couldn't tell during the '60s. It's more than just sex. Is really, basically delaying drug use and people being forced in situations, way early, thinking that they're cool, thinking that they're mature, thinking this, and with sober friends having to finally say, "Look, come with me. We'll get out of here. Go someplace else." And that's that was that in the movie. That was the right thing that the two friends did in the end. They did tell a friend, look, and even the one sober friend who was being slowly pulled into it, he saved the other sober friend. So basically, but it was a change of environment and change of attitude. So when I look back at in my early 60s, and then when I was 25, I wonder what I would have thought if I saw the movie when I was 25. Well, if I saw the movie when I was 25, it would help me prepare for some of the things I saw when I worked in medical research around Milwaukee Research Park and some other things. But the emergency room internship helped me bring me up to speed. But basically, the movie would have helped me understand more of the um, emotional psychology that was involved, why some of the people did that and what they were thinking. So in graduate school, I sort of was able to put this all together, and even when I left the research park, I was able to put this all together. That's partially due to internship in emergency room and pre med. Also, I worked at the park through the AIDS crisis. Um, and even basically with the first Gulf War, because like I tell people, anyone, even as a civilian military contractor, and also those who are enlisted and serve, once you go into the rabbit hole, you don't come out the same way you came in. You come out a little bit different, and all of us did. And basically, so when I look back at that period, it's like um, very profound, very insightful, and the movie is still valuable today. So I'd recommend to watch it, but for those who may have some greater sensitivity, might be better to watch it with someone who is older like that and more mature, because there's certain scenes that someone may need to explain, or they may need to stop the movie at points so the person doesn't get too overwhelmed. But very profound movie, and I'm glad was able to see the full movie. In '87, I would have preferred to see it because that would have helped me with certain things I would have run through during that '87, '88 period, and even during the '89 to '93 period. Well, let me know what you think. As I said before, best way to reach me is on YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, or X, like that. I prefer to do it that way because it's easier for me. And as I said before, please be patient because sometimes it takes me a while to respond to messages depending on how my health is. Well, thank you again for listening, and I'll talk with you soon.